I'm excited today. Because you ever get in that moment where you feel like that dad that came to Jesus, and you just kind of cry out to God, and you say, I'm trying to believe. It's not that I don't believe, but I find myself at a place where I'm trying to believe. Because I've seen so many things in my life that have come my way that have knocked me back a little bit that I'm struggling with wrapping my mind around believing. It's not that God's not faithful. It's not that God doesn't care. It's not that we can't trust God. But sometimes we get in a place where we're just simply trying to believe. So today's message is about helping you know that I've talked about us going up the mountain and we help each other up and things like that. And today's message is to help us back each other up. Help us to hold each other's backs when we know that it's hard sometimes when you look around and you're like, that isn't going to work. Have you ever seen that? You're working on some project, you've tried it 100 times and you can't get something to work. And somebody beside you sits down and they're like, well, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And what's the first thing you say? I've tried that. And it doesn't work. And sometimes when we're going through these hard times in our lives and people are like, well, you're supposed to just do this. And you just go, I tried that. It doesn't work. I'm trying to trust God. I'm trying to have faith. I have prayed. And I feel like I'm not getting very far. So in Mark chapter 9, verse 24, it says, the father instantly cried out, I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. What's that like? I can tell you, we all have those places where we say we do believe. Well, what's the backstory of that? Right? This guy brings his son who was demon-possessed. The kid would convulse and go on the floor, foaming at the mouth and everything else. And he had brought this child before the disciples, and the disciples were trying to cast out the demon, and nothing was working. Jesus sees the ruckus. He's like, what's going on? Goes up to talk to the dad. The dad's like, listen, my son has this problem. It's been since he was young. These guys are trying to pray, and we can't get the demon to come out of my son. And Jesus says, well, do you believe? And the dad says, yeah, I do. But help my unbelief. And I think we all like to judge that guy like, well, see, he's standing right before Jesus. Of course it'd be all figured out. Of course he'd have it, right? We want to judge him. But I know that feeling in that moment where you're like, yes, I do believe, but I don't think you're going to do it. I don't think you're going to do it. So there's a difference between believe and trust. See, I believe God can do anything, but sometimes after I've been stung a couple of times, I don't trust that it's going to work out. I don't trust electricity, okay? I can't tell you how many times I've been shocked trying to deal with electricity. I shut every breaker there is off on the place. I'll go shut the main off for the city if I have to. I cannot stand getting a little shocked, and I still get shocked. And sometimes I think it's mental, and then static electricity. I mean, everything, right? We get our minds a rolling, and we can get shocked on it. I don't like it. Too many electric fences growing up. I'm just not a fan of the electricity. And so I struggle with trust. I believe when I shut the breaker off that it means there's no power. But I still tap that thing a couple of times just to make sure all the veins in my arm don't stick out. Because I know sometimes that has occurred. Right? I'm not there in the place where I trust. Because I do believe it can happen. But listen, I can only trust the results. There's a difference between just walking around every day in faith, oh, everything's going to be fine, when sometimes we know it isn't. So how do we get to the place where we can just totally believe and take our belief to trust? That we're actually relying on somebody else. Makes me think of, my mom gave my brother and I chores growing up. Can you imagine that? As I think about that, I just think that's kind of extreme. I mean, as I think, every kid knows. Why do I have to take out the trash? Why did I have to take out the cat box? If I let the dog in the cat box, I didn't have to take it out, and I got in trouble for that too. It was frustrating. It was always hard. My mom wanted us doing the dishes all the time. Do the dishes, do the dishes. Okay, no problem. My brother and I let the dog lick the dishes clean. And then you set those in the cupboard. It's faster because you can get back to playing Legos sooner. My mom didn't believe. We did the dishes. She didn't trust. She went to the cupboard and she would open it up. She'd pull out the dishes. Look at this. And we're like, what? It's greasy. We couldn't tell. We'd check it with her. It doesn't feel too greasy. You ever notice that when you're helping with the investigation in the home? The kids are like double checking it. That doesn't seem that greasy. Look at all this food. I don't see much food while they're scrubbing it, wiping it on their shirt and everything. Look at this. She'd turn into my dad. Look what they did. Look what they put away. And my dad's like, leave it to the school. They don't teach the kids anything anymore. My mom's complaining, you guys are going to get us all sick. We're just trying to do dishes. Now, were we doing dishes? Yes. But my mom, for whatever reason, began to not trust that when my brother and I would go do dishes, they weren't done exactly in a prescribed manner. Apparently, and I know because she demonstrated multiple times, you have to fill the sink with water, put so much soap in there, get your hands wet, and you have to rub every dish with a wash rag or a sponge. It was a lot of work, and it definitely took away from the time that we wanted when we wanted to play with our Legos. We wanted to do something else. Why is that so important? Because my mom had received a level of things that had happened. She couldn't trust that the dishes were actually going to be washed the way she asked. So she developed some OSHA standard where she came back and double-checked everything all the time to make sure that we were doing our job. But the fact of the matter is that is our life. We see little things that begin to add up in our life, and all of a sudden, there's not trust there. Oh, I know that God can heal. Oh, I've heard about these miracles. Oh, I know God will come through for this financial debt. I know God will take care of this obligation, but I don't believe he will. So I'm going to do X. So I'm going to do Y. We could talk about Abraham, right? Didn't Abraham have that struggle? He believed that God would give him a son. He decided, but I got to help him out a little bit. So he and his wife made a plan, and they did things a little bit different. And then there's a consequence thereof, right? That consequence is still going on to this day because of that indiscretion. So we find ourselves in these places. So I want to think about something. Now, I'm not telling everybody to go buy a lottery ticket, but equate it like this. I believe because the news announces that people win the lottery on a routine basis. And you could believe you could win the lottery. But if you do not buy a ticket, you cannot win the lottery. And we as Christians find ourselves believing God will do it, but we never buy the ticket. You hear me on this? We know that God can work a miracle, but what's that ticket? What's that extra step, that substantial step? See, the dad brought his child before Jesus, and he said, do something about this. And Jesus said, do you believe? And he said, I do, but help my unbelief. How do we get to the place where we're buying the ticket, that we're actually participating? Or do we say, well, I know God can do anything, but he's not going to do anything about this? Is that the place where we haven't purchased that ticket? Is that the place where we're letting God have permission to know that he can do a miracle, but he's going to have to do it even harder because we're not even going to so much as get a ticket to even see if God is in that? Now, again, I'm not trying to tell you to go gamble. What I'm trying to do is give you an example of something that seems very, very miraculous or very far-fetched that you still have a level of participation in. So when we talk about trying to believe and trying to get from belief to trust, what takes our meter from belief to trust? To be able to say, I know God can work the miracle, and I know he's going to work the miracle. I know God can get us through this, and I know he's going to get us through it. What is that process? Nobody likes to deal with that process. The process is hard, right? It's like cleaning a house, doing the dishes. When you look at all those dishes, it can be overwhelming, right? Doing the dishes is a process, and it's not always convenient. It's nice to walk in and eat the meal, and it's nice to come back and all the dishes are put away. But something has to be done in between to maintain. And our faith is that same thing. You have to be doing the work for the faith in the background. You have to do something about it. So people are saying, well, you're not saved by works. I'm not trying to talk about works like going and doing all these things. I'm talking about the work that you have to do to maintain your faith. Just like there's a work in maintaining your walk with Christ. That's what prayer is. That's what this relationship is. What's the work to get me from believing to trusting? That's important. That's the stuff we want to talk about. That's the place we want to get. So how can you just say, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Why would he bother to say that? Because you have to get into the place that not only you believe, but you can trust and not let your dome piece mess that up. And our dome piece messes it up. Don't kid yourself 1 minute. We rationalize ourselves out of a lot of things. We rationalize ourselves out of our own miracles. And you're like, what do you mean? Have you ever just sat and let yourself go downhill? Worse and worse and worse. Well, this is not going right. That's not working. And before you know it, you find yourself depressed. I just don't think God's answering any prayers. I don't think God's guiding us. I don't think God's in this. I don't know why I'm going through all these things and God's supposed to show up, but God never showed up. God never did anything. I don't know if I can wait a second. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. So that's the first step of the job. Letting go of every piece of reservation you have. What does that look like? When you really have to trust somebody. I've told you guys about us deciding to go canoeing on the St. Vrain River out by Longmont when it was flooding. I was a teenager. Guys, that was stupid. Okay, I'm not telling anybody to do that. That was dumb. Okay? But we did it. And it was fun while we were on the water and going. But as soon as we came around a bend and saw a big old cottonwood across the river, what we found ourselves in was a precarious situation because there was an obstacle in our way. And the boat was going so fast, it wasn't like we could just turn and row to the side. So we're rowing as hard as we can to get to the shore, but the tree's coming fast. We hit the bank so hard, I fly out because I'm in the front, right? And the boat bounces back and goes straight back out and then just flips right up underwater, and my brother and my friend are in the boat. Phew, they're gone. I see a whirl thing like under the tree, and all of a sudden the boat shoots out on the other side of the tree. My brother and my friend, they're not in said boat. So I know there's a problem, right? Long story short, I see my buddy, he's swimming, and he's bringing himself to the shore, and my brother comes out, and he grabs onto that tree. But the tree is a branch that's way out, and he won't even so much as let go of the branch to get to the rest of the tree. He won't do anything. He's hugging this tree. He won't let go. He's terrified. I'm not making fun of him. If I was with him, I'd be doing something. So my buddy and I were taking tree branches. We're trying to get out. And here, grab on. I ain't letting go. Well, you got to let go. You got to grab onto this. We'll pull you out. You ain't going to pull me out. We already flipped me up under the water. You said we'd make it to the bank. We didn't make it to the bank. Now I'm freezing. And he keeps saying he's cold, he's cold. And we keep trying to convince him, just let go of your branch and hold on to ours, and we'll pull you back. We can pull you back. We've got good footing. No, you don't. Yes, we do. Now, for a second, that's exactly what we do with God. He's got all of the answer right there for us. We're so traumatized, so scared. We're like, I ain't letting go. I ain't letting go of this. Poverty mentality. I watch people do it all the time. When they're struggling financially, they got $4 in their pocket. They won't let go for anything. They hang on to that. That's all they can trust in. I need that. I need that to get go of the week. And God's like, give it. Give it. Oh, I ain't going to do that. I'm not going to trust. And so they can't push themselves forward into walking into that faith because they believe, yes, God could miraculously help me, but they don't trust that he'll really do it because of the situation they're in. I'd love to judge it and say, oh, yeah, I've never been there, but I've been there. I've been that same guy clinging onto the tree so hard going, there's no way I'm letting go of this thing. There's no way you can actually bring me to safety. Oh, I think you can in theory, but not before this water sweeps me away. I can't take that chance. We're convincing my brother, come on, just let go, just let go. He's like, I'm not letting go. It's too cold. We're like, you're going to freeze to death. You got to let go. I can't do it. We're trying to pry the board into his arm so he'll just let go and grab the other one. Well, half of his body's still sweeping under the water. He has no footing. He's terrified. He's telling us he's cold. We're like, duh, grab the branch. But you know what? We weren't in those shoes, and that's exactly what happens in our everyday life. We find ourselves overwhelmed. We find ourselves downtrodden. We know that the devil has attacked us. We've had these things happen. I don't care what it is in your daily life. There's something that rises against you, and you're like, I just don't want to let go, because right here I know I'm at least safe. And if I let go, I don't know if it'll be okay. And that's that getting that meter from belief to trust. Now, we were able to finally convince my brother. My friend actually had to go out and actually help grab one of his hands and put it on there while I'm still trying to hold this board and, tree branch. And we pull him to the shore, and we shucked our clothes and everything else. We were so cold, guys. That was stupid. Did I tell you that was dumb? That was so stupid. You don't go canoeing in a swollen river. It's fun when it's not swollen, but when it's swollen, it's moving fast, okay? The point is, I recognize from that moment that we all can struggle with letting go and trusting God. So what does that look like on an everyday basis? What does that look like for me to get to the place where I not only believe, but my meter is going to be full of trust? God, you can do more than this. Isaiah chapter 12. Verse 1, it says, in that day you will sing, I will praise you, O Lord. You were angry with me, but not anymore. Now you comfort me. We had worship this morning. We have worship every Sunday. We blew the shofars today. What a great opportunity to realize what it sounded like 2,000 years ago. They're blowing shofars. It's a different feeling. And think about this. They're worshiping. You have a moment to praise God. That's the first thing, guys. That's the first thing in getting your mind off of your circumstances. It's the first thing in being able to grab the branch, is not worrying about the water you're in, but focusing on who your Savior is and how He's taking care of you. At some point, you have to look at Him and say, He not could, but will take care of me. That's a decision in your mind you have to make. See, I think it's funny because I think sometimes we feel like it's going to be some pillar of lightning that comes from heaven, and all of a sudden, now I can believe. But I'm going to tell you, it starts with you. It starts with you. You have to stop and look around you. Have you ever done this? How many of you do this? Sit down and write down as many miracles as you can possibly think of that have happened to you in your life. When you're struggling with belief, when you're sitting there crying out, I believe, but help my unbelief, you don't even have to write down now. We have cellular telephones. You can type it in. Your thumbs can text just as fast. You can type a little message to yourself. Remember when God did this? Remember when God did that? People have the I love me walls at their offices. Look at all the things I've done. Why don't we have an I love me wall in our phones, in our houses, to say, look at all the things God's done for me. Look what God did in my life. Look how God took care of this. Look how God took care of that. People like to say, oh, wow, look how successful. You've just made all the right decisions. I talked to Bree about some things that happened this week, and I said, only God could have done this, not me. I could have never possibly orchestrated or masterminded that. Only God could set all of that up to happen, because I just can't. But did I write that down? Do I write that down and look at that months later, years later, to encourage me on that day when I just believe, but I don't trust? Because as we look at these things, we begin to go, oh, I know He'll do that. Just like me telling my brother, I've got a good hold here. I'm on this. You're going to fall. No, I won't. Look, I got this branch. We've got to get it. I don't know. Slowly but surely, those little things begin to build your trust. You're looking at that going, I guess. Yeah, I think I can. I think I can grab that branch. I think He won't fall. I think He does got me. Right? And maybe it's partly because one time when my brother and I, we made zip cord, we watched that Home Alone movie years back, and the kid did the bicycle thing, out the deal, whoo. So my brother and I said, you know what? If it can be thought of, we can build it. So we built one, but our rope kind of got to stretching. And so there was a lot of slack in there. Well, I went up to tighten it in the tree, and I did. I tightened it. Wrapped the rope. I forgot to tie it, though. See, that's important. I'm going to tell you why. Because my brother got about halfway out, and then just dropped like a rock. Gravity's totally real. 32 feet per second. It's coming down. There's no questions asked. And my brother hit the ground and cut his arm up and everything. So, of course, I did what any kid in my situation do. Went in the house, raided the medicine cabinet, trying to get some Band-Aids and stuff. And my mom starts asking way too many questions. And it's frustrating because I'm trying to help my brother, but she wants to know everything about what's going on. Next thing you know, she goes outside, sees my brother, sees the blood. We've been on orders, had to take the rope down, everything else, had to put it in the shed, and Mom locked everything where she only had the key, and that was over. Point is, I see where my brother could have a little lack of trust. Okay? I get that. I said, I got you. No, you don't. I'll get you out. No, you won't. But we do the same thing with God. Don't kid yourself. You get something where you're so passionate. God's got this. God's taking care of it. I'm not worried. And then you get the other shoe that drops, and it takes you. You're blindsided. And you're like, God, how could you do this? How could you let this happen to me? And that belief goes right back. Oh, trust is moving back. I'm going to just believe that he can do it, but not for me. Because for whatever reason, he didn't do it for me. And we've got to get to the place that sometimes we're going to recognize some people don't win the lottery. And there are people that have played the lottery for years, and then all of a sudden they win it. How did they stay so dedicated? One of these days, right? I'm not saying it's like that, but in our own lives. If we can't keep encouraging ourselves, keeping track of these miracles, writing down what God's doing for us, and actually when we're in that moment and struggling to trust, saying, you know what? I'm going to double check this. We're going to miss it. Hey, it's like playing basketball. Now, I'm not like some Michael Jordan when I was growing up, but I could make some hoops. But did you know this, guys? Here, listen, you probably didn't know this. I miss sometimes. No, seriously, I'd put it up, and that ball would not go. There's an orange thing it's supposed to, and it wouldn't bounce off the backboard or maybe hit the rim. Even air balls, that's even more embarrassing. It's like, how do you miss this, right? I didn't make every one. Does that mean I stopped playing basketball? Is that, I can't do it. What if I stopped and analyzed? Now, I threw that up there. For some reason, that didn't go in there. Well, must be that the rim got smaller. Must be that the rim doesn't care about me. Must be. No. I missed. And maybe I don't even have time to think about why I missed. Sometimes we want to sit and analyze. Why did this go wrong? All of this stuff. Look what Job did, man. He stressed himself out trying to analyze. He never actually got the actual answer, did he? Because it was all about God saying, yeah, go ahead, Satan, you can test this man. Nothing to do with what Job was doing, but everything to do with his faithfulness. His obedience to God caused that. Wait a second, is that normal? Is that right? But that's what happened. When you guys are throwing hoops up, when you're doing something, you can't just stop when it all of a sudden, oh, I don't trust anymore. I believe, but that's it. No further. Yeah, I know you can do it, but probably not ever again. I did it once. Ain't doing it again. No, you've got to get to the place where you're going, no matter what, I'm throwing this up. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. Because that's how you win. See, I don't know if you've ever watched a basketball game, but if somebody throws up the ball, misses it, and then just sits down in the middle of the court and says, I got to figure this out. We've got to figure out the trajectory. We've got to figure out everything. Why did I miss that hoop? They can't win the game. The only way to win the game is to shake that off and go back and throw another hoop up. Right? We have to do the same thing, guys. We have to get to the place that we're not licking our wounds all the time, that we're not struggling with that poverty mentality, but instead we're saying, I trust. Not only do I believe, but I went from belief to trust. You will take care of me. And if it doesn't look the way I think it does, I'm not going to bat an eye. I'm going to keep pressing in. The guy that made the light bulb, the guy's name was what? Thomas Edison? You guys heard the story? He got that right on the first try, didn't he? Or the 10th or the 100th? Like he had to redo that a bunch of times before he finally got the light bulb right. Was God punishing him? Was God chastising him? Was God not caring about his prayer? Was God not caring about his desire? No, God was helping him get better. Helping him to make something that we all still like to use, right? Lights are handy. Kind of like it, especially in the dark. It makes a big difference. Anyway, verse 2, Isaiah 12, verse 2 says, see, God has come to save me. I will trust in him and not be afraid. Do you hear that word trust? He didn't say, I will believe. He said, I will trust. I'm going to take a substantial step even further, and I'm going to recognize no matter what, I'm not afraid. He is showing up. He is taking care of me. Verse 3, with joy you will drink deeply from the fountain of salvation. See, I really believe that you can't enjoy that fountain of salvation unless you can get to that place where you can trust. Not believe, but trust. And there's a big difference. A lot of people believe in Jesus, but how many of them take it to the place where they actually trust Jesus in their everyday lives? And that's the part that I want us to hear. Verse 4, in that wonderful day you will sing, thank the Lord, praise his name. Tell the nations what he has done and let them know how mighty he is. Write that back down, because you're going to need that one of these days, because one of these days you're going to be sad again. One of these days you're going to be frustrated again, and you're going to need to know some level of encouragement. You've got this. You're going to be okay. I can still hear my mom. I was at a track meet, and I was a little kid, and I was running, and I could hear my mom cheering me on, and my little legs just went faster and faster and faster, because I could hear her root me on. I found strength when I was tired. God does that same thing. He helps us out. Now, verse 5, sing to the Lord, for he has done wonderful things. Make known his praise around the world. Do you think there's a correlation between trust, belief, and the fact that we have to go through some things that cause us not to trust in order to make the testimony that needs to be made? I'm serious. Let's think about this. How many of us would think things were miraculous if they were just everyday things? We know that, right? Everyday things aren't miraculous. But every day you get up out of bed is miraculous. Because the scientists were so good, how come they can't bring the dead back to life? People say, well, they do with heart surgery and blah, blah, blah. Oh, with some parameters, sure, they can do a few things. But they're just things they just cannot do. Every day that you walk, every day that you talk, every day that you breathe is a miracle. And yet we don't think about that. What about that transition? We talk about that. The transition when mammals are born, a baby calf born backwards. How can that baby calf be alive inside of her and get to the place where all of a sudden the navel's coming out and that calf needs to gulp air, and instead it gulps water and it dies? How can that millisecond of time change everything? That's a miraculous event. And if it was so easy to reproduce, it would be defied by now. So we have to get to the place in our own lives that we recognize God does the miraculous no matter what in our lives every day, and we need to be writing these down because it's going to take our belief meter to our trust meter. And I really believe that's important. Because when you sit there and say, oh, I'm trying to believe, as soon as you find yourself in the spot where you're trying, start reading, start looking, start talking to people. There are people you want to talk to when you're trying to believe, and there are people you don't want to talk to, right? Reverend Killjoy, don't call him, because he is going to tell you, I knew it. I knew this had happened to you. I knew God wouldn't take care of you. You always tell me you're praying, but look what happened. That's why I don't pray anymore. Have you ever talked to somebody and they're so brokenhearted, they're like, I quit praying. God never answers my prayers. I'm not praying. That's a broken heart. It's sad. And I don't judge it because I understand what it's like when you're in that water and you're just clinging onto your tree branch going, I don't think I can let go. I don't think at least I'm living to this point. I'm not going to take that chance. I don't want anybody to be in that place. Victory is mine. The battle is the Lord's. Oh, that's easy to say. It's a lot harder to live it, isn't it? I get it. Now, if we want God to help our unbelief, then we have to stop and look around us. We have to look at how many baskets we've already made, not the ones we're missing. And then, all of a sudden, our faith is going to grow. And I'm telling you, when we get to that place, you're making the substantial step. And when you make the substantial step, you're going to see results. It's hard. I get it. I totally get it. But there's a wonderful blessing at the end of that God has for all of us. And I'd love to just be like, well, I don't know. And, well, I think this is the exact formula. There's no exact formula. We're all made different. We all have different lives. We all have different calls. We're all experiencing different stresses. but together. Like Paul say, forsake not the gathering of the brethren. Together, when we gather, what do? We encourage one another. We help our belief meter go to our trust meter. It's a big deal. Now, this week, because it's Thanksgiving week, I want to assign some homework. So here's some homework. This week, not only being thankful for what you've had, not only being thankful for what God's done for you, I want you to be thankful for what God is going to do for you. I want you to stop and think about all the things that he's done. Make your list. Think on it, meditate on it, however it is that works for you. I'm not here to tell you how to do it. But once you get that list, I want you to start thinking about what he's going to do for you. I said it before, faith is the hand that reaches out to God and never comes back empty. It means you don't just like, oh, I hope one day this will be great. No, instead your hand's out there. I'm trusting God. You're going to get me out of this water. You're going to take me to the next place. I don't know how. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how many more hardships I'll go through. I don't know if the other shoe's going to drop. But I know you will not leave me or forsake me. You will not abandon me. You are here for me, and you will take good care of me. I want to say a blessing over everybody. Will you please stand with me? I really believe that God has a great blessing for you over this week. I can't imagine how great it's going to be, but it's going to be great. Lord, I lift up everybody here. I ask you, Lord, to touch our hearts. Strengthen us, encourage us, Lord, even when we feel so frustrated, even when we feel down, Lord, you're here to lift us up. Lord, take our belief meter right to our trust meter. Help us to get to that place where we know you are going to take care of us through thick and thin, no matter what it looks like, and that we can sit there and trust and not be afraid. I ask for your anointing to rest on every head. Father God, fill us with your Spirit. Cleanse our hearts. Fill us with your joy. Help us to walk forward as your ambassadors to continue to declare the word that you have put in our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen.